Let's go back to Genesis chapter 4. I'll read from verse 9 one more time. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is Abel your brother?" He said, "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" He said he didn't know. Everyone, please close your eyes for a minute. In your heart, aren't you hiding your heart before God? There are sins you have committed that your father knows nothing about. There are sins you have committed that your husband knows nothing about. There are sins you have committed that your wife knows nothing about. There are sins you have committed that your siblings know nothing about. Sins that you alone know about in your conscience. But your conscience knows about these sins, and God knows about them. So, you can't pretend before God that you know nothing about these sins. You may pretend in front of other people, but you can't keep up this pretense before God. You have to confess your sins before God. Verse 10, and he said, "What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground." These words were like a bolt from the blue. Before God, Cain had denied any knowledge of Abel's whereabouts. But when he had struck Abel, Abel's blood had flowed. His blood flowed to the ground. God said that Abel's blood cried out to him, "My brother killed me." He said Abel's blood cried out to him. What does this mean? No matter what sins people commit, those sins all cry out to God. Even if a person has not committed a sin that involves the shedding of blood, no matter what sins he may have committed, those sins are crying out to God. That's what this means. God hears the cries of the sins that you've committed. So then, how can you be happy? And how can you be at peace? Whether your sins are great or small, they are crying out to God, even though you have not known this until now. So how can your heart be at peace? This is why your heart is not at peace. This is why you feel uneasy. This is the reason that you feel uncomfortable, though you don't quite know why. You experience fear in your heart, but you don't know what it is you are afraid of. This is why. It's because your spirit is uneasy. This problem must be resolved. Verse 16. Then Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. In the end, Cain went away from God. Why did he leave? Because he was afraid before God. Why was he afraid? God said that the voice of his brother Abel's blood, which Cain had shed, was crying out to him. The cry of Abel's blood was ringing constantly in God's ears. So Cain went far away from God. He went to a place far away where he could not see God. He went to the land of Nod, which means wandering. Now let's read verse 17. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Enoch. And he built a city, and called the name of the city after the name of his son, Enoch. Why did he build a city? It was because he felt uneasy. Why did he build a city? At that time, no one had come to invade, but still he felt insecure. He felt insecure for no particular reason, and he was afraid. He had built a city, and now he wanted to protect himself. From that point on, man began to build cities. Why do people live in houses surrounded by walls or fences? It's because they feel insecure, because they are afraid. And so the world of man became a world of wars, struggles, contentions, and sin. I still have a lot to say on this subject. But let's turn now to Romans chapter 3, verse 10. As it is written, "There is none righteous, no, not one. There is none who understands. There is none who seeks after God. They have all turned aside. They have together become unprofitable. There is none who does good, no, not one. Their throat is an open tomb. With their tongues they have practiced deceit. The poison of asps is under their lips. This poison of asps is the poison of sins, whose mouth is full of cursing and bitterness. Their feet are swift to shed blood. Destruction and misery are in their ways, and the way of peace they have not known. There is no fear of God before their eyes. Look what it says here. In verse 16, so the path of man's life is paved with destruction and hardship. So man is walking the path of life, and everyone wants that path to be easy and smooth. They want to walk a path that is beautiful, abundant, and glorious. But in the end, they find this world is scattered with ruin and hardships. A person may save a bit of money, but then he falls ill and finds he has cancer. People live their lives in one way or another, but in the end, the path he walks holds nothing but hardships and destruction. It's a path of sin, and the way of peace they have not known. What is this true way of peace? People do not have peace. They have no peace because they don't have peace in their conscience. If you have peace in your conscience, even if you become sick, that is the way of peace. If at some point you are liberated from your sins, you will be able to live with your conscience at rest. That is the way of peace. Let's read now from verse 20. Therefore, by the deeds of the law, no flesh will be justified in his sight, for by the law is the knowledge of sin. So, God introduced the law. Why did he give the law? It's because when man sinned, he was not aware that his actions were sins. He introduced the law so that man might be aware of his sin. Yet, there are people who are unaware of this, and yet say that they believe in Jesus. God has given us the law so that we might be able to realize our sin, but they think that if they make every effort to keep the law, they will be blessed and will be able to be saved. They misunderstand what the Bible is saying. One thing you need to understand here is that in the Bible, there's the law and there's the gospel, these two. People who believe in some religion feel uncomfortable in their hearts. People who believe in some religion always feel oppressed. The word religion comes from the Latin word religio, which by definition means to restrict or restrain. It oppresses and binds the conscience. If people were half-hearted in regard to their religious life, they wouldn't struggle so much. But when they try to adhere strictly to their religion, they find no rest in their conscience. They have no peace. Why is that? It's because they must abide by such strict religious precepts. Because they are not able to live according to those precepts, in their hearts, they feel like constant failures. As they think about the fact that they have sinned yet again, they constantly feel oppressed. That's what religion does. Verse 20. Therefore, by the deeds of the law, no flesh will be justified in his sight, for by the law is the knowledge of sin. Why did God provide the law? He gave it to us so that we might realize our sin, so that we might know we are sinners. So in that case, if you truly want to find salvation, there are steps to the process. The first step is to realize your sin. Those who believe in Jesus without being aware of their sin are not saved. After you come to know your sin, you need to be freed from your sin. That is being freed from religion. And that is truly believing in Jesus.